In this episode, we're going to have a special all Gshock lineup with the latest and upcoming models from the brand. We'll also dive deep into how the Full Metal Casioak is actually a brilliant upselling move. We're finally going to give SKXMOD its due, and we're going to wrap up with your viewer comments. Now some Gshock news and sneak peeks. In the past week, we got a few notable releases that appeals to women and smaller wrists. First, we'll begin with the GMS110. Taking a page from the Casioak, Gshock is releasing a smaller version of the GM110. It comes in 4 metallic bezels and dials. This will be 42mm in diameter and 30mm thick. It will also use a new simple module, the 5706. The buckle is nicely matched to the metal case. Next, we have a new square base model, the DWB5600. The serial may be familiar, but this one lacks some key features. It does launch with a cool translucent resin that fades to a dark opaque color. There is a Bluetooth function, but lacks the tough solder feature. This is an interesting take at the budget connected Gshock. Time will tell how the battery on this one will hold. A new pleasant-looking Lovers collection will be released in winter. Apparently, this can also be bought separately for single folks out there. This metal-covered pair of GM56 and GMS5600s will come with a metal bezel, gorgeously contrasting blue accents, and a steel buckle. Next is a more reasonable shot of the rumored Super Mario Bros. Square. This slightly disappointing collaboration will feature a bright red motif with the pixelated Mario pattern applied on the resin band. This will feature the usual custom packaging and the one-up display screen. The Rangeman will be getting the Love the Sea and the Earth treatment with some really nice white and blue chrome configuration. It's a highly collectible collaboration that's been a tradition now from Gshock, so be quick to pull the trigger on this one. And finally, another 40th anniversary release is coming, the GMW B5000EH, the Eric Haze Metal Square. This is a collaboration between Casio and the famous street artist Eric Haze. This is the 8th and most expensive Gshock model to date from Eric. This design makes use of the dotted patterned application similar to the titanium camo models, but done in Eric's unique art style. This will have the 40th anniversary caseback and the Haze display art. We'll keep you covered on our next new releases. We've all been there before. We drive through any fast food chain, you shout out your order to the oftentimes preoccupied person on the other side of the speaker, and the first thing that they would ask you is, would you like to upsize that? Now with those 5 words, you're given actually a choice. You can choose the convenient route of actually spending a little extra, but you get a little bit more fries and a lot more soda. Or you can choose to disregard shame, external judgment, and missing out on the potential bang for buck deal by saying no thanks. And who knew ordering fast food would be such a moral dilemma? Well, in reality, this is a metric-backed marketing technique called upselling. Now, upselling is quite literally the technique of selling a much more expensive version of the same product. This accounts for 15 to 40% of McDonald's revenue, which is about $7 billion, a meager $7 billion in 2021. Gshock, however, is actually upselling their watches also in a similar way. However, instead of being left with a feeling of regret and overall bloatedness, Casio actually manages to make you feel nice about it. Here's how Gshock has a blueprint for upselling. The first component is audience conditioning. 3 of the flagship models from Gshock are the GA110, DW5600, and the most recent hit, the GA2100. This can be had easily at under $100 to $130. This has been proven also to be the ideal price range for digital quartz watches. Gshock offers whole collections with similar designs, but built with better materials and more complicated patterns. This, however, takes a massive price jump of 80 to 100% from the base model's price. Compared to consumer electronics such as the iPhone, a typical jump is from 25 to 40%. So why are we even remotely okay with paying double for an upgraded Gshock? This is where audience conditioning comes in. The same pricing strategy can be seen with other luxury watch brands. The Omega Seamaster, for example, has a similar price jump from steel to titanium. If you want to get a two-tone, you're already paying double. The brand created a desirable aspect from the next model that's a higher tier than that of the base model. In the Seamaster's case, it's the material titanium or some gold. The audience, through the years, was conditioned to expect to pay for this amount to get the better model. Gshock follows this same strategy but on a more affordable route. It adopts the collectibility feature to justify the price jump while playing around with the consumer electronics price range. This kind of conditioning has proven to be very effective even if the consumer has an informed idea of the actual costs for the parts used to produce the product. This is why the modding scene is a lucrative side market. We'll come back to this later. The GMB 2100 is a very good example of this conditioning effect. This is more than 5 times the price of the base model. We have also proven in this channel that with a few mod parts from the aftermarket sellers, we can recreate one that is barely half the cost, even have it done before the actual Full Metal Casioak got released. But we were conditioned already to expect many of these elements. We already expected that the price will be $500 like the other Full Metal models. We also expected it to have more inclusive parts such as the new case construction and case back. We knew that it was coming, so we had time to brace for the impact on our wallets. We were conditioned that it is the next level up. Knowing this, we can even predict the next logical step in the conditioning process. We will get the inevitable rare collaborations, we will get the titanium builds, and very likely the MRG model, which is a product of the latest conditioning process for the square in this case. The next component to this blueprint is the reactive resource management of Gshock. Gshock held its quarterly investors update and they released this online along with the projections for the later half of this year. Many interesting points were brought up in this document. On the timepiece segment, the metal and exterior parts of the manufacturer was greatly impacted by COVID-19. This accounted for the decline in sales and profit margin from 20 to 19%. That 1% accounts to about $20 million in lost revenue for the quarter and about $56 million for the year. With the projected decline, Gshock looked to the previous year to see where the growth came from. They identified that the metal models continued its strong sales. The GA2100 had massive expansion in the young demographic in Europe and US. And other Casio collections such as Oceanus, Edifice, and Sheen had a recovering trend. Using this data, Casio aggressively moved to promote other resources that they have that were not impacted by COVID-19. First, they expanded their brand sales to key demographics, namely youth, women, high-end consumers, and the health market. This explains the massive marketing push for these segments in the past year. Then they expanded their e-commerce platform using the My Gshock service. This also boosted their credibility towards loyal fans and returning customers. Using market metrics, Gshock quickly reacted against manufacturing issues in a matter of just a few months. And this is open for the public to see. The next component is the affordable modding scene. Going back to the GMB 2100, many people were not willing to buy one immediately. They, including me, saw that the modding scene is a viable alternative to the authentic one, at least for the time being. But while Rolex is actively combating the aftermarket world, Gshock is yet to be seen jumping into the fight, and we may have actually know why. According to the fiscal report of 2022, Gshock appeals to users of rival luxury watches and affluent consumers based on unparalleled craftsmanship. You don't have to own an MRG to notice this principle. After experiencing both authentic and aftermarket builds of Gshock, Casio's quality is still better, at least in my opinion. This whole segment of the video is actually an expanded essay of a viewer comment. Mike reminded us that the inside structure of the Full Metal Casioak is completely different from the base models. This is part of the Gshock conditioning. we expected that this model will not be a lazy installation of existing bracelets like many third-party aftermarket parts. It's also unlikely that these parts makers would manufacture all of these new parts and risk losing on their volatile profit margins. It's easy to understand that with every person out there modding their GA2100s to appear like the full metal model, another would aspire to actually purchase the authentic one to get into the club of owners. This brings us to the final component: social media. More and more people are talking and sharing their Gshock collections in the web and social media. I know for a fact that even our channel found its massive growth through Gshock content. In 2018, we saw massive year-over-year growth from Gshock as they pushed for aggressive expansion. The brand saw over 800% more engagement and 200% more click-through across all major platforms. Gshock continued to ride this wave of exposure. You don't have to look at the statistics to see that there's a lot more Gshock content now than ever before. All of this enforces to people's minds that Gshock is affordable, collectible, and cool. This drives the curiosity for the next big collection, something that we watch enthusiasts experience with luxury watch collecting. I personally experienced how great it is to own these rare pieces and at the same time feel great for owning the base models. Gshock knows this, and we're totally fine with it. Gshock took a general bad year in production, identified the areas for growth, and executed their strategy in a matter of months. Now that we are a little bit more free to roam around and to get back to our buying power, Gshock is ready to offer its killer lineup with its impending 40th anniversary celebration. They've got it all mapped out in their blueprint for upselling. Now for our next segment, it is a long overdue look at SKXMOD. Now SKXMOD has been producing not just, as their name suggests, SKXMOD parts, but also they're getting very well known, especially on YouTube, with regards to their parts for the GM2100 Casioak. Now, we received both the versions for the GA2100 and the GM2100, and we're going to look at them now in this latest product review. This video is brought to you by SKXMOD. I'll be skipping all the yada yada and say outright that SKXMOD makes Casioak mod parts. We'll be using this stock GM2100 that I initially did not find parts for, but this company offers in various configurations. On top of this, the cases and straps that they produce are incredibly versatile. Out of the box, SKXMOD strives to bring you this ease of modification and complete parts selection. This $120 kit offers the Casioak case, bracelet, rubber strap, buckle, deploying clasp, and a number of tools and screws to complete your watch transformation. They even provide you with a lot of small pouches so you have some storages for your surplus screws and pins. Once I was ready, I was able to quickly disassemble this GM2100 and have the case module ready for its transplant. I love this GM2100 for its pleasingly defined dial that would pair well with this dark toned Casioak case and bracelet. Snapping this in the case was relatively easy. It fits securely snug for this enclosure that's specifically designed for this model. 4 screws are used to fasten this together, with the bracelet being connected separately. While other brands have a hole in the case to connect with the bracelet, this one has it on the bracelet, cleaning up the case even more. Look at that gorgeous light play on this wrist roll. The links are also very narrow, making sizing for any wrist very convenient. Thank Mr. Genta for that design. The beauty of this bracelet construction is that SKXMOD used the same long pin to hold the bracelet and rubber strap. Now that extra sporty look is just one screw away without buying a whole new kit. So if your wrist is still too small for that metal bracelet, you can try the rubber strap instead. It also bears mentioning that this rubber is very soft and comfortable to wear. With the matching colored buckle, the look is complete and ready for action. For larger wrists, it has generous amounts of strap holes coupled with a heavy-duty buckle. But don't forget, you have a Gshock module inside this watch, so you can throw them around liberally. SKXMOD also throws in an extra AP deployant for this rubber strap. This will be the only time anyone will see this clasp, as I will bury this blatant imitation in the heart of Mordor. Back to our typical narration, the interchangeability of these parts multiplies the enjoyment. We also got to play around with the GA2100 kit, which deserves its own spotlight. Keep in mind, the cases for these two are not interchangeable. The rest of the parts, though, can be easily swapped. Now this adds a little more contrast to this all-black tone model. The clasp and buckles are also swappable, a disclaimer from this procrastinating content creator. So in the spirit of making things work while disregarding design integrity, I'll just challenge you to keep watching this video while I wear this extremely out of place clasp configuration. Just imagine that this golden clasp is black. You know, the one that I wanted to bury a few moments ago. If you still want to see the case and strap combo, just pause this clip right here. Okay, good. Let's bring back that bracelet. Now that's more like it. The taper is just so good and the dazzling facets are simply irresistible. Note too that this kit is an homage to the ceramic Royal Oaks. You can actually trade this one in for that authentic one, so long as you can add a beamer and an Airbnb as sweeteners. Now let's pass this on to the examination table and look closer at its details. There are some more things that make this kit different from other Asian market parts. The finishing all around is crisp where it should be and soft when it's needed. The chamfers and button recesses are polished to provide a great separation against that dominant brush finish. The links are appropriately tapered, including the smaller inner connectors. The bridge here is also milled and coated, while others may skip this process altogether. When enclosed, the black tone visually tucks the buttons away, and bonus points for that unsigned fold over. I wish they did the same for the rubber deployant. The bezel has gorgeous contrast between the polished screws and sides that showcases the iconic bezel. Thank Gerald again for that. The biggest feature of this case is the faux crown on the side. This is a non-functional crown that I initially opposed to but somehow accepted the more time I spent with it. With this crown, it inches closer to the watch it's emulating but not too close to alert the authorities. Without it, like the rest of the Casioaks out there, the piece becomes its own quirky blend of flex. At least now you have a choice. For the large part, the dial of the GM2100 complements the light manipulation of this gunmetal case, something that's evenly applied all throughout the kit. Regarding profiles, it's still unmistakably Gshock, but now classed up to appeal to the watch enthusiast, more specifically the DIY kind. SKXMOD offers a touch of luxury for as little as $100. It's a different flavor that's more akin to wearable Lego than a garage kit for watch collectors. The ability to transform a relatively affordable Gshock is gratifying enough, but SKXMOD proliferates the fun even more with its interchangeable parts. But SKXMOD is not done. They said they're still developing the next big DIY kit. With more things to look forward to, SKXMOD will continue to innovate and evolve the Casioak. And that is the SKX mods for the GM2100. Thank you so much once again for SKX mods for sponsoring many of our videos and for sending us a few of these kits. But we're not done yet. There's one more kit that we wanted to review, and we're going to wrap up that video very, very soon. And now it's time for your viewer comments. Let's begin with Teddy Morgan. Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller. Well, he didn't actually call. He actually sent his comment in. Okay. Big fan of your channel and how you shoot your videos. Thank you so much. What do you think are the best top-quality micro brands out there? What would you say would be the best, and what would you say best rivals some of the bigger brands out there like Omega and Breitling, etc.? Well, first, let's begin our discussion with setting the parameters on what a microbrand is. Now, we're not going to define what a microbrand is. That's going to take hours upon hours of sitting and debating and discussing, and quite frankly, I'm not in the mood for that right now. But we are going to set some ground rules to this kind of analysis, so to speak. Let's begin with general under $1,000, because what I've seen in the microbrands market, that's typically what the people will readily buy microbrand watches from. Actually, it's like around $500, but let's raise it to 1,000 so that we have a little bit more room. Well, a limited production run of 10,000 units, because more than 10,000 units, I think, is not micro anymore, has released more than one collection. If they release just one collection, there's so many microbrands out there that just release one model or one collection and that's it, they die out. So there's no point of actually considering that. So let's say at least 2 collections or more. So let's begin with an honorable mention, Baltic. Now, why is this an honorable mention? Because I've never reviewed a Baltic before. I would love to review Baltic, but so far I have not had the opportunity to do so. Now, why am I saying Baltic? Well, Baltic now has created a brand impression that's truly attracting many of the collectors out there, and not just those microbrand enthusiasts. Also, the combination of their bead blasted and reggae numerals on that newest model, the MR01, is just beautiful. That for sure is going to garner some attention, if not even awards. This one, however, is just 36 millimeters, and Baltic as a brand is actually moving up away or up the categories of microbrands. So that's why it's a honorable mention for now. So what microbrand out there fits Teddy Morgan's question here? To me, it's undoubtedly Zelos. First and foremost, when you say Zelos, it's very distinctive microbrand. If you can't say microbrand, you're going to say Zelos, or Zelos is microbrand. It's just synonymous at this point because they're so prolific and the way they've created a cult following. This is a brand also that offers a vast catalog of models and different variations and updates regularly at a yearly basis, if not a number of months per year basis. So it really has grown almost to the point of not being categorized as a microbrand as well, but it's still a microbrand in my opinion. Now, the value proposition is also tremendous because they have like a massive capital at the moment. They have already created a following to the point that they would sell out immediately with almost every single model. And finally, the quality is just amazing for the value, especially the ones that are hardened coated. Those are like amazing for what you are paying for. And not to mention that they're retaining their value, if not even some models are trading higher for what they used to sell for. So that's what really makes Zelos the top microbrand, at least in my opinion. No bias there. There's some Zelos models that I do not like, but I cannot deny that Zelos is the best microbrand. Michael Chan asks, what watch in your collection means the most to you? To me, it's this one. This Movado Museum. This is given to me by my wife in our anniversary, and this actually started me in watch collecting. I still can't say watch collecting because I'm not really collecting watches at the moment in a way that it's curated. So let's just say this started me off as a watch enthusiast, and this will never leave my collection unless it gets stolen or unless my kids will do something about it when I die. That went to a dark turn really quick. Razzie11 writes, how did you get involved in design and how did you begin? Sorry for my bad English. Well, it's not really bad English. It's very understandable. So, okay, so how did I begin? Actually, I'd like to think that I began designing at a very young age, maybe back in grade school, not maybe, but certainly back in grade school. I was an avid fan of Marvel Comics, and my favorite characters are from the X-Men, especially Cyclops. I remember him, he's my favorite. And since I was young, I really wanted to draw, and I've been drawing quite a bit, mostly comic books. Then I transitioned to Dragon Ball and Ghost Fighter, those kind of anime like Akira also. It was obscure back then, it wasn't as popular back in the early 90s. I would like to think that me and my classmate, my friend, were ahead of our time when it comes to being fans of anime. And now it's amazing how that blew up. But after that, I moved back to comic book when I got a little bit older, and I actually applied for DC and Marvel Comics. Of course, I didn't get accepted. DC Comics didn't even review my work. However, Marvel's now current editor-in-chief, C.B. Cebulski, he was a talent scout back in the day, gave me some constructive criticism about my work, and it boils down to that my art style, because it's anime, was not compatible with the house style of Marvel. So I don't have work for Marvel. I tried publishing myself. That didn't go well. I only published one issue, and that's it. And I saw that, okay, this is really not for me. I got published by a small independent comic book in Chicago, but that's about it. That's about what my comic book career was. But then, in the 2000s, I went into video games and learned about Valve and how they're opening up their game Team Fortress into a marketplace. So we tried our hand on that. I learned 3D modeling, and I partnered with some collaborators, and I made items for video games since then. I partnered with Valve on Steam, and we partnered on Eidos, Activision, and Sony, to name a few. So I made virtual 3D assets for them. Another thing about that is that helped me create connections with other people, and that learning experience gave me the confidence to actually diversify and actually pursue arts even more, and I could actually see that there's something that I can do in that field. And that is why I went into YouTube during the pandemic. I made videos because it's something that I've always wanted. I've been editing videos when I was young using two VHS tapes, VHS recorders. From there, that's when I dove into watches, and many people, and like you viewers, are actually supporting me on that. And some of you, specifically the Wizard, saw the potential in what I do, especially with the arts that I make, and he partnered with me, and we actually created watch heads. And this watch heads is a creative way of expressing our watch enthusiasm using characters. So it's kind of like a full circle back to my former career or former field of expertise, which is character animation, character depictions, and comic books. So watch out for that. There will be launching our shop soon, and you'll hear more about Watchheads Inc. in the near future. Johan Kasumar asked, what is your go-to daily beater mechanical watch? The one that you can wholeheartedly abuse to your heart's content, and you know it will be alright. Well, actually, I don't have a beater watch. I have a rotation, so I wear a different watch every day. But if there was one watch that I'm willing to bash around or wear without any care, it's probably this, the AWM500 from Gshock. Now Gshock, this AWM500 is just gorgeous with all of that finishing, and it's so robust, it's so heavy, and you know it's Gshock, so it's not gonna break on you, and that I have full confidence in using. Brelad asks, hey, how does it work with reviewing watches? They send to you for free and you get to keep it in return for a published video? Any requirements to speak positively about the watch? Okay, so this is something that quite a few people ask, but I think this is the time now to actually mention it, or at least expand on it, right? So when I started my channel, I created a few videos about the watches that I actually own, because I know I have full reign about it, and of course they're G-Shock, so they're relatively affordable. So the whole channel was based around my current fold of G-Shocks, and I know that how many content or how many videos I'll be creating for that. But then I use those videos because you've seen in my earlier days how I already had the scribbly lines and the arrows and the blueprint idea on those early videos, and I showed those videos to other brands hoping that maybe they'll be interested in sponsoring me or collaborating with me for their watches, and happily some did. Now the deal was that I make these high production videos. I call them high production videos. They really are produced at a higher quality for my ability, but well, brands liked it, and the deal was that they will send these items to Aruba, a small island that I live in right now, and they need to cover the cost, and that is a very big limitation for many brands. But some actually agreed, so they send me the watch, they cover all the shipping costs, and I also asked them for me to keep the watch, and that overall arrangement will cover for the will compensate for the production costs. Now, not all agree in the same term. Some do ask for them to get the review unit back because, well, quite frankly, some of them are far too expensive to cover for the video production that I make. Some examples of that is Christopher Ward and some Zelos units. Now, I approached the good folks here, a local AD named Shiva's Golden Gems, for an unpaid partnership. Now, this deal that I went into with them was that I shoot and produce these videos, but in return, I make these videos into a version that they can show their clients. So I'm actually making 2 videos with some variations regarding the items, regarding the watches. Now this helped me to expose myself to other higher tier watches and brands that I would normally won't be able to partner up with. They're just too big of a brand to do that, like Roger Dubuis, Hublot, Zenith. These are the really high-end watches, and even at some point I reviewed a Richard Mille and Vacheron World Timer. It's really an amazing opportunity. I thank Shivas for that. They helped me grow as a watch enthusiast. Nowadays, I'm being approached by other companies and not just watch brands, but also some watch winders and watch cases. They've been approaching me, and I'm planning to review more of these products. So there's no shortage of content for my end. But the second part of that question by Bree is how I review these watches. Now, I generally am a positive reviewer. It's not in my personality to bash on a product or to say overly negative things about a subject or about a watch just to create drama or content or interest. I'm not like that. I'm a product designer myself, and I view that these products are a labor of love, even though some of them vary in refinement and in designer taste. However, I do say some negative things if there is some to say with regards to the product. I typically mention that to the brands as well so that they are not surprised. They work with me. They often tell me, okay, that's fine, you can say that, but you could say this also. And basically that's the stipulation. They want me to mention the specific features of their watches, and that's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a good thing, because sometimes I do miss these features myself, and these are selling points to the watch, and there's no point of saying the bad stuff if you're not gonna buy it. And that brings me to my next point. I have rejected some brands because frankly I could easily see, okay, I'm not gonna be talking good about this brand, so why go with it in the first place? It's not going to be fun for me, it's not going to be fun for the viewers also. It's just a literal expose about the brand. Then I think you can find that in some other channel. That's not my channel. Also, I'm completely I completely reject every single replica or homage watches that's blatantly copying other design, because quite frankly that's not their design. They're copying from somewhere else. So I don't want to do anything about those kind of stuff. Those replica watches, they're a no-no for my channel. Or not even watches, replica, anything. It's just a bad thing. I decline that every time. And now some words of wisdom from Mr. Zelos about a certain collectible Hublot timepiece. Oh no, just no. So much no, I can't say no enough. No times infinity no. Dear God, no. Thank you, Mr. Zelos, and I think your point is clear. See you next week. In this episode of Designer Notes, we're going to blah, blah. It's actually, in reality though, this is a metric-backed marketing technique called upselling. Now, upselling, sorry, did I say $10,000? 10,000 units. Okay, 10,000 units. And now it's time for your viewer comments. Okay, how should I do this? Should I do this like this? Okay, let's do it like that. Man, this is hot. Okay.